In the hospitals, there's several things that pharmacists do. And one of those things is that pharmacists verify every single medication order that a physician puts in before it ever makes it to the patient. If something comes through that's not appropriate, that's harmful, that's wrong in any sense of the word, right? As pharmacists, we're calling the providers, we're sending notes, messages, whatever to the providers and saying, hey, we need to get this fixed.
You're listening to Cold Press Conversations with Dr. Jewel White Williams, a lover of numbers, lists, and a good glass of cold press juice, who is sharing episodes each week to help you explore the back end of healthcare and health sciences. Where a lot of that grit is done, we'll dive into topics covering research, education, and clinical practices, as well as guest shows with other leaders in the field. Pull up a seat and let's dive into these amazing and game-changing conversations. Hello and welcome to Cold Press Conversations. My name is Dr. Jewel Williams, and I am elated today that I have Whitney Prude. She is a practicing board-certified clinical pharmacist, as well as a Mayo Clinic certified wellness coach and nationally certified health and wellness coach. Whitney is also certified in medication therapy management and pharmacogenomics. She currently works part-time as an inpatient clinical pharmacist at Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, where she has been there for 7 years. She's a public speaker, entrepreneur, CEO of Whole and Happy Living, where she helps individuals truly transform their health from inside out while also losing weight in a way that can be maintained long term. I am elated to have Whitney Prude. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm going to be honest with you. I am elated because I have someone who is an expert in the house. You're probably like, what? You know, you're a clinical pharmacist at Mayo Clinic, and I just want to know, what made you want to start this business and transition into coaching?
Oh gosh, it was never in my plan. It was never in my plan. No, it wasn't. My dream was to become a pharmacist. Ever since I was in high school, I wanted to be a pharmacist. I worked whole heart and soul. I put everything into becoming a pharmacist, getting through pharmacy school, doing residency, getting into a hospital. 9 months into my first job at the Mayo Clinic, I started to get a pain in both of my wrists. Using the computer, verifying orders, doing some, dispensing and checking of medications. I thought, okay, give it a couple weeks, I'll be back to normal. And within about 2 months, I was actually diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. Nobody completely knows exactly what it is, but I have, labs indicating rheumatoid arthritis and lupus. And essentially, it turned my life upside down. I had a lot of restrictions. I couldn't use the computer anymore at work, which is, 90% of my job.
None of your job.
I wanted to grow in the profession. I wanted to really move to I was in the central pharmacy. I wanted to move to, the ICU, be, very clinical pharmacist. That was always my dream. As I got sick, I ended up starting to give some of that up, not really knowing what was going on with my body. And so I was 28 years old. It took about 2 months until I was nearly bedridden. I was completely fatigued. I could only do like one thing in a day. I could maybe take a shower, and the rest of the day, I'm in bed, could hardly climb the stairs. It was awful. It was absolutely awful. So, I'm there, 28 years old, $200,000 of student loans hanging over my head. And I say, holy crap, what do I do now? So that's when, I started tapping into, well, what would I do, if I wasn't a pharmacist? And I always, for whatever reason, I always had a dream to become a motivational speaker. And so I was like, okay, well, let's start going the motivational speaking route. So I started going to Toastmasters, doing a lot of speaking. And along with speaking, people usually do something, it's like have coaching or write a book or whatever. And so I started looking into coaching. I was like, oh my gosh, like I've been doing this my whole life. I've been coaching like my friends, my family members, even when they didn't want me to, I'm like forcing myself on them, trying to fix their lives. So it just really, it kind of all fell into place of finding what I feel like now I was really meant to do. But gosh, it was a much longer journey to get there than it needed to be.
When you mentioned working in a pharmacy and it was affecting your wrists, And it made me immediately think of the pharmacists that I used to work with. And all they did, even back when they had the computer, regardless of how big or antiquated it was, they always did everything. The process was with the computer. And I'm like, what is she going to do next? I'm just thinking about the process. You're so young, and then you mentioned the amount of money that you had hanging over your head. But being a pharmacist, you have so much to offer the public, the wealth of information. Instead of me explaining, I would like for you to, if you don't mind, I just want to kind of go back, explain the depth of what a pharmacist really has for a knowledge base for their community.
Yeah, I would love to. I think a lot of times pharmacists actually are forgotten. They're behind the scenes. So nobody really actually recognizes, especially in like a hospital setting, what pharmacists actually do. But in the hospitals, there's several things that pharmacists do. And one of those things is that pharmacists verify every single medication order that a physician puts in before it ever makes it to the patient. If something comes through that's not appropriate, that's harmful, that's wrong in any sense of the word, right? As pharmacists, we're calling the providers, we're sending notes, messages, whatever to the providers and saying, hey, we need to get this fixed. So, in a large part, right, we sometimes we joke and we call ourselves the babysitters of the hospital, right? We're making sure that everybody's doing their jobs correctly. Even nurses, it's like if they don't know how to do some part of their job, they're calling pharmacy, and we essentially try to figure out, an answer for them. But essentially, in order to be able to look at medication orders and know whether or not it's appropriate for a patient, for what we're treating, the interactions with all of their other medications, the lab values that they have, like we're literally going through everything. So we have all of the knowledge base, all of the medical knowledge of being able to, treat a patient, and then the in-depth knowledge of the medications and what's appropriate and what's not and what can actually do harm. And there's a lot of, it's like there's new, medical residents that are coming through the hospital. And every year, we come to the start of, medical residents coming on board. And, at that point in time, like we are changing things like crazy because they're new, right? And there's a lot of stuff that they don't know. And so pharmacists really make a huge difference in terms of medications, making sure that patients don't get harmed with their medications, and really reviewing and looking over everything to make sure that they're kept safe, that they're getting the correct doses, the correct medication, preventing any number of things from actually happening.
The reason I wanted you to explain is one of the things that I have noticed and I've been witnessing. Pharmacists are opening their own businesses, not all of them, but I've seen several lately. And what they're doing, they're becoming the educator for their community and really helping their clients, their patients with medication management.
Hmm.
I mean, like they're really making a huge difference. And I can see you meeting the needs of the community when you are the wellness coach. You're probably taking it to a whole different level. I'm not lessening anyone than the average wellness coach. I'm not lessening anyone. Your knowledge base and your background has to really make a true intersection between traditional medicine and holistic wellness approaches.
Yep.
So, how do you apply that when you're coaching with their patient care?
We have really complex patients, clients. Um, we do, and I mean, I think that those types of people are drawn to us for that reason. When they see my credentials and they see my certifications and kind of how I put things together, because there are disease states that require medications, and there are things. Even me with my autoimmune disease, if I didn't have medications to be able to help with the autoimmune disease, I probably wouldn't be alive right now. Like it would have, my body would have destroyed itself essentially. So understanding that there's a place for medications, but also a lot of medications are bandages. And we use them as crutches so that we don't actually have to take care of ourselves. and prioritize our health and do the things that are actually required to have a healthy body. So instead of taking the crutch, let's get you as healthy as you possibly can be. Let's control everything that's in our control
Mm.
and get your body as healthy as it can possibly be. And then, where there are aspects that we can no longer change with lifestyle changes, then there may be a place for medication. But as a society, we don't do that. Most of the time, we're not going to the doctor and saying, tell me to go home and kick my butt in gear and exercise and eat healthy and, take care of my mental and emotional health, right? We go to the doctor because we want a quick fix. We want a medication. We want the problem to go away and we want to go on with our life the same way that we were always living.
You're probably personalizing it to the point where you're noticing various patient outcomes. Give me a reflection on how your patient is feeling with the outcome, because you said it's not bandaging what's going on. We're not just covering it up or making it feel better.
Mhm.
You're in the intent of, let's go to the root issue and see where we can go. So, how is this making such strides and such differences in your patients and their outcomes?
The coolest thing that we do is that we dive into the mental and emotional stuff. Nobody really wants to go there, right? But we have to unpack this. And this is what nobody wants to touch. If you think about the diet and weight loss industry, okay? People are, they say, okay, I'm unhealthy, I'm gaining weight, maybe my cholesterol's high, I have high blood pressure, or, maybe I'm pre-diabetic or I'm diabetic, whatever, right? All of these physical signs of things that we can see that are happening with our health. But then what we do from there is we say, I have to change my food and I have to exercise. But what we never do is we never ask the question of, why in the world have I gotten here in the first place? What is actually driving my behavior? Because food is not forcing you to be unhealthy. You are making choices, you're making decisions that are driving your behavior. And that's what's caused you to end up where you are with your physical health. So, if we really want to transform your physical health, we have to start addressing the root cause. What in the world has gotten you here in the first place? And what is keeping you stuck? And the reality is it's all the crap that we've all been through throughout our entire lives that's built up that we're unaware of. We've developed coping mechanisms and we're just trying to survive.
I love it. So, let me ask you this question: do you have a therapist on site as well?
That's a good question. So we don't have a therapist on site within our company. We just do coaching. And I have a lot of people ask this of like, wait a second. So you're dealing with mental and emotional stuff, but you're not therapists, right? So we are coaches and coaches have a specific niche, right? We are actually helping people deal with life, get through life challenges, get through health challenges, right? But there's one really, really cool aspect of coaching that a lot of people don't recognize. Now, with therapy, usually, you're digging deep into the past and you're reliving experiences and processing those experiences. And it's very much, going backwards. Okay. Coaching is figuring out what's caused us, right? So we're pinpointing, okay, so these things happen. This is what caused you to get here. Okay. We're acknowledging and we're recognizing the things that have caused us to do what we're doing. We may do some exercises to help ourselves kind of process some of those experiences. But then what we do with coaching is we focus on moving forward and upward. It's a different process, right? We're looking into the future. We're saying, these are the things that are standing in the way. We'll try to process some of those things and work through those things. But in terms of moving forward and upwards, we need to know who we are, why we're doing what we're doing. We need to learn how to genuinely show up for ourselves
Yes.
and love ourselves and realize that we actually deserve to be healthy. We actually deserve to be on the top of our priority list, not at the bottom or even off of the list. So, learning to genuinely value ourselves and to find our true internal motivation that we actually deserve to be healthy and making ourselves that number one priority, so that as all of these other things are coming up in our lives, our jobs are getting more demanding, people are asking us to participate in stuff, we have to start saying no, because we say, wait a second, this is interfering with my health, right? I'm not healthy. Like, I can't be healthy and do the things that you're asking me to do. So the answer needs to be no. So we help people to really increase their awareness, to become very, very strong internally, and empower them to essentially create the life that they deserve to live, and their health, right? Getting their health to their ideal place where then they can maintain it long term. It's not just jumping on a diet, a quick fix, and then jumping off and going back to everything that they've done before. But because we're truly transforming ourselves internally, then we continue doing what we're doing and staying healthy because it's become who we are.
Okay. You focus on weight loss, right?
Yeah,
And so I'm sure you have like various principles or strategies that you work with weight loss. But before we go that there, I just want to know what would you consider some of your most important factors that need to be in place to lose weight in a healthy and sustainable way?
sure. Sleep,
Oh, yep.
stress. I'm always approaching things that people don't expect us to be approaching. It's like they expect to jump onto a program that we give them a meal plan that they're going to try and follow, and then give them some exercise to do and lose weight essentially. But the problem is that that's not the full picture, right? If you're sleeping 2 to 3, 4 or 5 hours a night, your body's not going to allow you to lose weight in the way that you want to. If you're chronically stressed, you're working, you're keeping yourself so busy that you don't even have any downtime. You don't have any time for your body to relax and recover. You're not going to be able to lose weight like you want to lose weight. So we still have to work on these things on the back end. We have to have those things in place, because if our body is fighting against us when we're trying to change our food and our exercise, right, we're still not going to be able to see the results that we want. So sleep is essential. Stress, decreasing your stress, decreasing, just the busyness and overall stress in your life is absolutely essential. And then, of course, we've got food, we've got the exercise, we've got water intake, and the specific ways that we do nutrition and increasing your protein. I mean, it's almost the basics, right? It's things that you've heard your whole life that have been forgotten because we've been flooded with so much information about diets and weight loss and how we can trick our bodies into losing all this weight super quickly and destroying our metabolisms. I mean, we're just getting back to the basics, to the way that our bodies are designed to function.
You're redirecting. It's a form of repetition. We pick up patterns, we pick up certain things in our lives, and it becomes rote memory or rote process.
Yep.
Now, what I'm hearing is that you're emphasizing that their goals can be achieved. It's just that you're redirecting how they're using their path of eating, their path of living. And I think that's amazing because I love the title. I've got to say it again if anyone missed it. It's your company is called Whole and Happy Living. And you're working on the transformation and sustainable weight loss. You have to be impacting your audiences. We got to let everyone know. Whitney Prude, Dr. Whitney Prude, she is a public speaker. And with the wealth of knowledge that she has to be making a huge impact and motivating everyone to make these whole and happy living changes. Tell me how you practice at Mayo Clinic, you are a clinical pharmacist, you are an entrepreneur. How are you able to just intertwine everything so that we can speak to your audience? Talk to me. Like, what do you find has been one of your like your most passionate speeches that you realize that, oh my gosh, I know I had this plan, but I ended up realizing this is what this audience needs. Give me some insight.
My favorite speech is The Art of Achieving High Level Wellness. The way that the speech is put together. I mean, I share my story, and really I take a mental and emotional approach because it's what I'm most passionate about. If we can't really get to the root of really what's going on, we're not going to get real change. If you want real results, long-term sustainable results, we've got to get real. And one of the things that I love to talk about more than anything else, and it's a research study that The whole world should know about it. It should be, it shouldn't have taken me this long to learn about it. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's the ACEs trial.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So I love to talk about the ACEs trial, and I love to talk about why the ACEs trial ever came to be. So we go back to an internal medicine doctor at Kaiser Permanente who puts together an obesity clinic, right? And he has thousands of people coming into this obesity clinic. And he starts recognizing, why are people dropping out of the program once they start being successful at losing weight? It's like blowing his mind. Like, why is this happening? So he becomes determined to figure it out. And he starts interviewing people. He interviews 286 individuals that had dropped out of his program. And he interviewed them for a long time, and he wasn't really getting answers until he changed his questions to specifically talk about weight. And he would ask questions like, how much did you weigh when you finished junior high school? How much did you weigh when you started high school? Or how much did you weigh when you went on your first date? And then the question that really rang true and started to get answers for him was, how much did you weigh when you were first sexually active? And the answers that came were awful. They're answering 30 pounds, 40 pounds. I was 50 pounds when I was first sexually active. And the reason is because they were being sexually abused as children. Now, this physician had only had one patient in his entire career that he knew had been sexually assaulted as a child. And yet, almost every single one of these 286 individuals was telling them the exact same thing. So, obesity for these people wasn't a problem, it was their solution, because obesity kept them safe and they were overlooked. Nobody was looking at them. Nobody wanted them. Nobody wanted to attack them or abuse them. It was their safety net. And when they started to lose weight, they were uncomfortable. They were scared. The trauma comes back. So they quit and they go back and gain the weight. So this is what actually led to the ACEs trial of, what do we actually go through in our childhood? What traumatic events do we go through? And mind you, anyone who's listening that's like, oh, I didn't have any trauma, 80%, 87%
I
of
would
the
say,
average population
give it. Yes.
falls into this study. Everybody does. Almost everyone does. That we've been through things in our childhood and that they directly correlate to our health outcomes later on in life. So if this is causing us to develop our current health condition, then we've got to go back and say, what do I got to work on? What do I have to work through? What do I have to overcome? How do I have to grow myself internally to the point that these things are no longer affecting me? Because they're manifesting in physical health. So why do I focus so heavily on mental and emotional? Well, it's the absolute underlying reason of why they are where they are. We have to.
I'm glad you brought that up. I'm trying to see if I can find this. The ACEs test, the score and the meaning that goes along with it.
Oh yeah.
I was introduced to it when we had a workshop. And of course, being a researcher, even though I was a principal at the time, they had all of the administrators take this test. We didn't share anything, but it was to give us an insight, because it was a social worker who was giving this. This is a licensed social worker who was giving this staff development, and it allowed people to look into where they were and how it impacts on how they are meeting the needs of their students. And it was just really, really eye opening to really see everything and to witness how they presented this information. Hopefully, that with you bringing this up, talking about the trial, and me just letting people know about the ACEs quiz and all, there's so much that's out there that brings you to that pivotal point. I'm going to be honest with you, listening to you here, I can truly imagine the impact that you're giving to those that you're speaking to, because it's got to go beyond. It's a trauma. And when they talk about trauma, it's not just abuse in that manner. They're talking about holistically the childhood trauma collectively. Glad you brought that up. I really, really am. You know, I know we've gone from you being a clinical pharmacist, unfortunately, with your autoimmune disease, and how it pivoted you into where you're helping in a dramatic way. I want to just ask you to just give maybe one or two tips of how someone can meet their needs of weight loss? Or where should they go? How should they start?
In terms of physical health or mental and emotional health?
Okay, so you're making it go tricky now.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is what we'll do. We'll do one mental and one physical
Okay.
because they go hand in hand. And I'm thinking of a lot of things. I'm just curious to know, what would you say to our audience?
Honestly, one of my favorite tips to share in terms of mental and emotional is to start with food. Start with the trigger, right? When you're going to food and you want to eat, you pause and you think and you evaluate and you start asking yourselves 4 questions. The first question is, am I hungry? Okay, so you get home from work, you're exhausted. The first thing that you do is you go to the pantry. Where are those cookies? Where's that bag of chips? Where's whatever, right? So we pause and we ask ourselves, am I hungry? We check in and we find, no, I'm not hungry. So the next question we ask is, well, then why am I going to food? Now, if we start asking why, then we kind of start digging, right? Let's look back over the day. Let's look back at work. Okay, so I came home from work, I'm exhausted. That's one thing, right? I'm feeling like I need energy, so I might be going to food. But stress can be a trigger. What did you have to deal with while you were at work? Did you have an interaction, with a coworker or a supervisor or your boss? Did something go wrong? A lot of times or we'll come home is like, oh, today was so hard. I deserve this. I deserve a treat for all of my hard work. It could be any number of reasons, but we have to start asking ourselves why. Why am I doing this behavior? And then the third question that I always have people ask is, if I'm not hungry, but I feel like I need something, but it's not food because I'm not hungry, then what do I really need? What is the true need? Well, if I'm exhausted, I probably need to sit down and rest. I need to relax. I need to let my body recover. If I'm stressed, what are some of the tools that we have that we can use to help us to manage stress? If you're sad, you're lonely, you're whatever it is, right? What do I need? Right? We're starting to check in with ourselves. We're starting to learn how to show up for ourselves emotionally. And the fourth question is, how do I actually meet that need? This is when we actively start showing up for ourselves. This is when we actually start relaxing instead of going for food. This is when we, call a friend when we're sad instead of, shoveling food down our face. This is how we start going through this process of recognizing a trigger, recognizing our actions and what we're doing, and then starting to dig into why. Why am I doing the things that I'm doing? And what do I actually need? And how can I show up for myself and really actually take care of my own emotional needs?
All right. If there's a drop the mic, that's one for me. Drop the mic, y'all. And the reason I say that is because I think even though we talked about just hitting the emotional, you hit physical too.
Yeah, I guess you're right. We hit them both. We combined it in one.
Combined it in one because uh it's your action of
Yep.
going to where you're going to either the cupboard or the refrigerator or driving to the nearest fast food chain because you're driving home, you're stressed, you're tired, and you go to the fast food chain. That's still all there. It's a
Yep.
physical. You can't get the food unless you move your body. Well, then again,
Correct.
there are some people who help them in the process, but we're talking about the average Joe. And so you hit all of it there. I want to say this has been an amazing interview. And I hope that we can bring you back for when I deal with Ask the Expert because you have reached so many areas of our lives, knowing that many of us do not want to be on medication, but we are, and how to use the medication appropriately, which is medication management, but yet still looking at our healthy selves, making sure we're looking at ourselves holistically, mentally, and physically. And with your impact of whole and happy living, it's literally cumulative. You're doing it all for everyone. And I am very pleased to know that you're out here working this job the way that you're doing. I know it wasn't the plan that you had in place, but the direction in which you're going, you're meeting so many needs. I want to say thank you. I gotta say thank you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Cold pressed juices, I believe in them. I don't drink them a lot, but I do drink them. I have my own cold press machine because I'm a green kind of person. I love apple, celery, anything that can be green. Add some regular greens in it, some kale, make it all
Yeah.
good. Touch of, coconut. Do you have a favorite cold press juice?
I mean, I'm a huge fan of orange juice, honestly. Like you give me fresh orange juice, I'm a happy woman.
That is awesome because it holds a lot of vitamins there too.
It
So
does. You give me that vitamin C and
that is awesome. I just want to say thank you so much. Whitney, if they want to get in touch with you, what is the best way to do so?
They can visit my website, mywholeandhappylife.com. Or if they want to message me, they can certainly get onto my Instagram and just send me a message. And that's my whole and happy life with an at symbol in front of it. So just remember my whole and happy life, either with a .com or an at in front of it, and you'll be able to get a hold of us.
That statement's like an affirmation.
No, it is.
Whole and happy life. Automatically, they're going to get into it. That's like an
Yep.
affirmation. My whole and happy life. I love it.
Yep.
I love it. I love it. So, thank you once again for joining us on Cold Press Conversations. Dr. Prude, thank you so much. And once again, if you want to get in touch with her, go ahead, find her on Instagram or reach her at her website. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Cold Press Conversations. If you love this episode as much as I did, I need you to head on over and subscribe so you never miss an episode. This is Dr. Jewel signing off to health and cognitive happiness.